Hello everyone and welcome to Retail Archaeology. In this episode we'll be taking a look at Big Lots. And if this store looks familiar, it's the same store that was in the video I did about a year and a half ago covering the history of Big Lots and some of the signs that they may have been headed for trouble. Well, as you can see from this footage, this store is now liquidating. In their most recent quarterly sales report back in June, they had announced they would be closing 40 stores due to a 10% decrease in sales, which resulted in a $205 million loss for the quarter. Shortly after that, the number of stores closing was increased to 150 locations, and now in a recent regulatory filing, Big Lots has announced they're actually closing 315 locations, which is about a quarter of their 1,389 stores. Big Lots made some interesting statements in that regulatory filing as well, such as that there's a significant likelihood of them defaulting on a loan from 2022, and that the company has substantial doubt about the company's ability to remain operational. In that video from a year and a half ago, I had asked the question, is Big Lots in big trouble? I think we have the answer now. What I find interesting about this particular location is that it's been liquidating for a couple of weeks now, but it doesn't really look like it. There's not a ton of empty shelves. There's a couple of places where things look picked over, but for the most part, the store looks just as stocked as it did when I covered it a year and a half ago. I'm also surprised that they're only offering 5, 10, and 20% off things at this point. This area here, like the laundry detergent and fabric softener, this looks like one of the areas that got hit hard pretty quick when the closing sale started. But really, everything else looks just like it did before, just with store closing signs hanging all over the place. There is some empty end caps here and there, but that was already like that before they started closing the store. Something that I found annoying about this particular store closing sale is that they have all these signs hanging down saying nothing held back, store closing, but when I started looking at the food and grocery items, I noticed these signs hanging all over explaining that the store closing deals don't apply to any of this stuff, that it's just their regular everyday low prices on all of this stuff. So nothing held back is a lie. And also their everyday low prices on this stuff really aren't any lower than prices at the grocery store, and I think that's part of what Big Lots' problem is. I think a lot of people think of Big Lots as a store where you go to buy candy and look for discount closeouts and maybe purchase some cheap furniture. Well, people don't really have a lot of extra money right now because they're spending so much money on things like food and groceries that they just don't have the extra money to go deal shopping at Big Lots. With them already having trouble getting people to come into the stores, charging the same prices on grocery items as the grocery stores, and also the furniture not being that cheap anymore either, isn't helping them at all. It seems counterintuitive that in a time when people's dollars are really being stretched that discount retailers would be struggling, but discount retailers really haven't been discount retailers for a long time. It just seems like places like Big Lots and Family Dollar and Dollar General really aren't any cheaper than places like Walmart or Target. Especially on things like grocery items, health and beauty stuff, household goods. You might find some deals on cheap headphones or something like that, or, a $20 George Foreman grill, but other than that, you're not really saving that much money anymore shopping at places like these. Now, I have to admit they almost got me on the George Foreman grill here because I've never had one of these before, and for $20 plus 5% off, it almost seemed like it would be fun just to get and play with, but I can think of 20 different things that I could spend that money on that would be a better use of it. I think another sign that Big Lots is in big trouble is this particular liquidation sale. This store has been doing a closing sale for a few weeks now, and I really expected it to be more picked over when I came in here. This was filmed on the weekend in the afternoon, and I was surprised how empty the store was. And it's not like it's not obvious that they're having a liquidation sale. They've got signs hanging all over the shopping center, and they're even making people stand out in the heat holding those big signs saying store closing, but still nobody's even really coming in here. If they can't even get people into their stores for liquidation sales, I think they've got a lot of problems ahead of them. Usually at these store liquidation sales, every week or two, they'll kind of increase the percent off on everything. So I'm interested to see what that magic number is going to be to get people to come in here and clear out the store. Now here's some of the stuff that I like to look at when I'm at Big Lots, stuff like the cheap toys and things. And I noticed they actually did have some officially licensed Pokemon stuff, but I think it's just Pikachu there. I'm pretty sure all of these other plushies are just generic animals and things like that and not any specific characters. I did get a good laugh when I looked at this side of the display though, because I noticed that they still had these repackaged Pokemon cards from when I was here a year and a half ago, and it doesn't look like a whole lot of them have moved. And then I also noticed that they still have this FIFA World Cup 2022 stuff down here, specifically this sticker book from Panini, and they had some of the stickers as well for it. I think it's safe to say that any FIFA World Cup 2022 stuff that hasn't moved yet is probably dead stock and just needs to be dropped off at the thrift store. I also like looking at the electronics section because I do sometimes look at Big Lots for universal remotes when I'm trying to get like an old CRT television or something working. Most of the time when I find those, they don't have the remotes anymore. But otherwise, it's just a lot of overpriced HDMI cables. None of this stuff is really that great of a deal, since it's all kind of cheap crap anyways. So even the 20% off, I don't think makes any of this worth it. But if you do need an alarm clock, they've got tons of alarm clocks. Yeah, this is all pretty much the same crap that was here a year and a half ago. This caught my eye just because I don't know who Dabney Lee is, and I tried to look it up, and I'm still not quite sure who Dabney Lee is, but this cheap mouse is kind of interesting. It looks like this might be some closeout stock, but I can't imagine they were trying to charge more than $10 for this anywhere else. This thing was so light. Now, this is horrifying, carpool karaoke. If you ever pull something like this out in my car, I'm kicking you out. And here's the cheap Switch stuff that they've had sitting here since the Switch was new. I'm always amazed at how tiny these wheels are. Here's a package of candy cigarettes for scale. And then all the way up here at the top where almost nobody could see it is some Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville stuff. It seems like Big Lots always has Jimmy Buffett Margaritaville stuff. And I actually hadn't seen any in this store on this trip until I found that thing way up on the top shelf. Here's a look at some more of the toys. They've got some Captain America action figures here, and it's just all Captain America, none of the other Avengers. Got some cheap wrestling toys. It's an interesting toy section. It's better than the toy section in most grocery stores, but not as good at places like Target and Walmart, and obviously most of this stuff is closeout, like this Disney Villains thing. This is another section that I was kind of surprised wasn't more picked over than this, though. A lot of toys at store liquidation sales usually go pretty quickly. And here's those G.I. Joe not Legos that I saw in the previous video that I called bootleg, and it turns out those are officially licensed by Hasbro, so I have to correct myself on that. Something I was interested in purchasing was patio chairs. I need a couple of new ones, but I think I'm just going to come back in a couple of weeks and roll my dice and see if I can get these cheaper since there's so many of them sitting here. And here's the DVDs and Blu-rays, and oh look, another section that's being held back in the Nothing Held Back store liquidation sale. It's really annoying. I guess they plan on moving some of that stuff like the food and DVDs to the stores that are remaining open, but I'm honestly not sure how many stores are going to remain open in the future. What are your thoughts on Big Lots though? Do you think they have a chance to turn things around? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, everyone, thanks for watching. Want to see your name here? Head on over to patreon.com/Retail Archaeology to find out how you can help support the channel. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out my update on Big Lots. I know I said at the end of my last video that we would be going to the mall in my next video, but unfortunately that video is not done yet and is requiring some more work, and I thought it was important to cover some of the news about Big Lots. In the next video though, we will be going back to the mall.